G'day Trailblazers, my name is Cam. Welcome to Lesson 6 in my Introduction to SQL and Salesforce Marketing Cloud series. In this lesson, I'll be covering one of my favorite functions in SQL, and that is the case function. So, like always, we'll be covering off what we've done in our previous lessons 1 through 5, so make sure you have checked those lessons out before you join in and watch lesson number 6. Now for today, we'll be using a few examples to go through and exemplify just how cool the case function is. And to start with, we need to go through an example use case. Now let's pretend that our database admin has come back and told us that unfortunately, our bookworm points and statuses are not being calculated properly. Unfortunately, it's a bit too aggressive. We're making the point threshold too high for each of the tiers of our bookworm status. We jump into one of our customer data extensions here, and for our 50 records, we can see their point and their status totals. Now, what if we were told we have to make our statuses a bit more lenient? At the moment, our craft tier is our lowest tier. Once you get to around about 200, it looks like you go to linen tier. And after linen, we get to level 500 for points, which is the parchment tier. If we had to calculate on the fly and make a whole new data extension with some brand new statuses, how can we do that in SQL? How can we take our point values here and create new statuses for them? Well, we can do this using the SQL case function. So we'll start off by jumping in and making ourselves a brand new data extension to put our new data in. Let's go create. We're going to choose a new data extension and choose to create an existing one. That is, to make a new data extension based on a previous one. So in our learning folder, let's make our customers. We're going to make our customers with our new tier. So let's call this one new status, actually, for our different status points. Now for our new status data extension, we'll keep all the same fields as we had before, and we'll just go create. Of course, we do want to calculate a brand new bookworm status, so there's our new status. With that done, we'll jump into our queries, and that's where we were before. Go back and make ourselves a brand new query. So I'll go choose, we're going to create ourselves a brand new query. This one we'll call query number 4, and we'll go next. Now for this one, we can quite simply pick up the fields of our previous data extension. So since we do have to fill out our new status data extension, we can see what fields we need here by dragging and dropping that table in. We want to select these fields and select all these fields from where? Well, from our customers, obviously. That was going to be our source data extension. So from our customers. Now the problem is we actually don't want all these fields exactly as they are in the customer data extension. We want some different values. We know for a fact the status one here is wrong. We need to do some calculations. So for our points, these are numeric, so we can use our math functions, which doesn't really help us out, as use some calculations. And to make our statuses, there are 3 statuses we need to be aware of. That's going to be our parchment, our linen, oops, and back to our customers, and our craft tier. So we'll find our customers once more. Let's get those 3 tiers copied out. So we have our craft tier was our lowest. Make some space, put it down here, our craft tier. What else do we have? Our linen tier. And we also had our parchment tier, our top tier. As you can see from our 50 customers, only 2 have the parchment tier. There's only 2 customers went above 500 bookworm points. Let's go in now and change our calculations. It's a bit too aggressive. We want to have more parchment tier customers. So for our bookworm status, we have to do some calculations. So let's push this one down. We can use our case expression. Now jumping into W3 Schools, we can see for ourselves how the case expression works. It's just like a great big if statement in SQL. You can see now why I like it so much. So having a look, we have our case statement where we say case to start it off, and then end to end it. And just like your if statements, we have if something, then something. If something, then something, and so on and so forth. But in SQL, it's read case, when this condition is met, produce this result. When this condition is met, produce this result, and so on and so forth. So let's copy this code. It's a pretty good piece of example code to use. We'll jump into our SQL and paste. Of course, once our selection expression here is done, we want to name the output result as something, so we'll name it as our bookworm status. But what are our conditions going to be? Well, we can say if the bookworm points is what? We can use math functions. It's a number. So we can say if bookworm points is greater than 75, then we want the bookworm status to be what? How about we choose, actually we'll do craft tier. There you go. Once you get to 75, it's craft tier. So we'll put in the value of craft tier. If your bookworm points is not above 75, oh, actually no, sorry, we want to do the reverse because of course many customers will be above 75, and this is a waterfall statement from top to bottom. So this will make everyone who's above 75 craft tier. We don't want above, we want below. My mistake. If you're below 75 in your craft, if you're not below 75, then what if you are below 200? Now if you're above 75 but below 200, then you'll be linen tier. And if you are above 200 but below 300, then you're going to be parchment tier. And of course these are string outputs, so I'll put some quotes around them. And if none of those things are held true, then you must be something else. If you're not below 75, you're not below 200 or below 300, you must be above 300. So what tier should you be? Well, we can call this one our platinum tier. There's our new 4 tiers. That should make it a little bit easier to segregate our top and low performing customers to make some more VIP events. So let's drop out our working text there, and now we have our brand new tier structure. So if you're from 0 to 75, you're craft. From 75 to 200, you're linen. From 200 to 300, you're parchment. And from 301 and up, you are platinum. All right, let's check our syntax. We're looking good. So this should pick up all 50 customers, choosing our original data as it was, and then recalculating our brand new bookworm status. So let's jump down to next and see what it looks like. I'm going to choose to overwrite and replace the values in my new status table with no current records. Good. Next and finish. Let's save and now run our query number 4. Okay, so the SQL's just finished running, so we can jump back into our data extensions and have a look at our results for our new status. And we have 50 records to start with. Good start. Now for our different statuses, we had 75, 200, and 300. So for our records, anything that's below 75 should be craft. 72 is craft, good one. 50 is craft, okay, so below 75 is craft. Below 200 should be linen. So that's above 75, below 200, above 200. Okay, good, good, good. Just below 200, so still linen tier. The parchment tier was between 2 and 300. Just below 300, just missing out there. Anything that's above 300 should be platinum. That's looking pretty good. So parchment for below 300, above 300 was platinum. So just used our case statement over in our SQL, jumping into our function here, and we can see that our case statement has worked. We've been able to recalculate those bookworm status values based on the total bookworm points. So back in our data extension now, let's try and look at another use case for the case statement. Let's pretend that our marketing team has asked us to create some customer segments based on the customer's lifetime of membership with our Bookworm Club. They'd like us to make 3 different bands of subscribers. A band for new subscribers, those who joined in the last 30 days. A band for existing, those who joined between 30 and 180 days ago. And then a band for our long-term customers, those who joined more than 6 months ago, more than 180 days ago. So to do this, we can jump back into our new status data extension. In our properties, let's edit fields and add a brand new field. Let's call this one the segment. For our marketers, now our segment can be a text field and make it nullable, and we'll save that field. Now let's jump back into our SQL and have a look at what we can do to our SQL to make this brand new field. We can jump in and modify our existing code here. Lucky for us, we do have the existing case statement from our bookworm status. So we can be a bit lazy here. We can copy our case statement down and make a brand new one right below. Now, of course, we're going to call this one our segment. So we'll copy the name there. Segment is our output field name. So all this case as segment. And as we said, there are going to be 3 segments. So we've got 1, 2, and then else for 3. So we can drop that one out. And we do know it's going to be for those who are less than 30 days old, those between 30 and 180, and then of course all the rest will be our long-term customers. All right. Now what field do we need to make this case statement work? Well, we can use our join date for our customers. So take our join date, we can jump down here and say when a customer's join date is in the last 30 days. Now because this data was extracted and the most recent subscriber's join date is the 6th of August, I think it was, then we can make sure that we use a static date for the calculations so that my values are the same as your values. So how can we make a calculation to see if the join date of each subscriber was in the last 30 days, 180 days, or longer? Well, we can say whether the join date of the subscriber is greater than a date minus 30 to get to this 30 point. So we could say our date add function that we learned in our previous session, so date add, we can say using the function of days, if we were to subtract 30 days from, now of course in the real world you'd use the get date, but since we are going to use a static date, we can say it's 2023-08-06. We're going to say, did they join after the 6th of August minus 30 days? In which case it was in the most recent 30 days. And if so, then they're going to be a new customer. Now once again, in the real world, you probably wouldn't have a static date like this. You'd use something like the getDate function, like that. But for now, we'll just use our static date so that my results are the same as your results. Now if they're not going to be in the last 30 days from this date, that is, they've only joined 30 days ago, what if they were existing? So, existing cohort. Now existing, as we said, is between 30 and 180. Well, we can keep this same function and just move the date forward from 30 to negative 180. So again, we can be lazy and copy our code here down below, just like that, and say, well, if they're not in the last 30, are they in the last 180? And if so, then they must be existing. Perfect. And if they're not new and not existing, then our waterfall case statement keeps going, and they must therefore be long term. Let's check our syntax, make sure it's looking okay. Looking good, so we'll go next. Let's overwrite our new status, next, and finish. And we can save and rerun our query for to update our new status data extension to see what segment each of our 50 customers falls into. So our SQL has just finished running, so we can jump back into our data extension and have a look at our results. In our new status, we'll go to records and hopefully find a new segment field with some long-term, existing, and new. Perfect. Let's check out the values there to make sure it all got calculated correctly. If we sort our data on join date, we can see that our longest serving customer here for the 19th of January is definitely a long-term customer. Perfect. Keep moving forward, and it looks like, yep, the 7th of February, which would have been about 6 months before the 6th of August, and they turn into existing. And more recent dates here, all the way through to 17th of July, which is about 30 days, or less than 30 days, from the 6th of August. So we've now completed our segment with 3 possible combinations: new, existing, and long-term. So as you can see, it's really easy to make additional segments in your data extensions using the case statement in SQL. So if we can make segments, then what else can we do? Well, if we have a look back on our data schema for our database, we can find some more data we can use our case statement for to create some segments. What about our books? What about if we wanted to make a special data extension that contained a summary of all of our books and sales so that we can see which our top selling books are? Then we can use that data in our emails to try and upsell our most famous books, but also try and bring some attention to those that are not selling so well. But we could use our SQL books and our invoice detail data extensions here with a case statement to try and make some new segments for ourselves. Let's try and make a new statement then, which will group our books based on the number of sales they've had, the quantity of sales. We could make it into 4 groups. Those that have not been sold yet and therefore could be a discovery book for our members. We want those that have sold between, 1 and 5 books, and call that our new starting books. Also those that are above 5 but less than 10, those could be our trending books. Maybe those that are above 10 sales, those could be our hot books, our top sellers. If we can make that data extension and tag up those books really easily, having that segment is going to make it a lot easier to look up those books using AMP script in our email. So let's try it out. To do this though, we'll have to make a new data extension. So we'll jump into our data extension folder for our SQL learning. Let's make a new one. Now for this one though, let's make it nice and easy. We're just going to use the book SKU, so we can do a quick lookup on book SKU. We'll get the total number of sales and perhaps that grouping as well. So call this one our book sales data extension, and we'll go next. And of course, all we need is going to be our book SKU. So SQL books, we get the SKU. There it is there. And a SKU, of course, is a number, I believe. Yes, it is. We'll also get the actual number of sales, the QTY. So we'll get that quantity of sales. That should also be a number. And finally, we'll get the actual segment to put them in. So let's call this one segment. And for segment, we'll leave it as text. So we'll make this one a SKU as primary key and nullable unnullable, and we'll go create. With our new nice, light and easy data extension, we can go and start to populate our new segment out. So let's go back into our automation workflow, make ourselves a brand new SQL activity. Let's choose to make a new activity, and we'll call this one our book sales. Now for our book sales, we're going to want to look up those 3 fields. So again, we can cheat here and go into our data extension location. We can pick up our book sales and drag and drop it in, and there's our 3 fields. So we want to select those 3 fields. I'll do some nice formatting here. Just like that. Now from where? Well, of course, for our from statement, we're going to want to target our book SKUs to start with. That's going to be our SQL books data extension. So jumping into our SQL, we'll find our SQL books. There it is. I can copy that name. So from books, I'll call this one B for books. But next, I'm also going to need some more information. I'm going to need to get back the quantity of sales, since that's what our segment's going to be based on. To get the quantity of sales, of course, I'm going to have to join our books onto our invoice detail. So find our invoice detail. There it is there. I'm going to want to left join. Of course, it has to be a left join, because if it was an inner join, we wouldn't bring back any books that have got no sales. So you have to use a left join. So left join in our invoice information here. We'll call this one I for invoice on, and I for invoice is going to join on SKU, I believe, is our matching piece between these two. We can have a look here for ourselves. It is SKU matches on SKU with a many to one relationship. Good to know. So on I SKU is equal to B for books SKU. Lovely. So now we should get back the quantity. But the quantity, of course, is going to have to be a sum quantity. We don't want to bring back every single line or invoice detail and every single book within it. We actually want to get that as a aggregated field. So as we learned previously, we can make this done a little bit easier by making an inner query or a subquery. So instead of doing a direct join to this table, we could make it easier for ourselves by making it into a subquery. So we could say left join and selecting just the fields that we need. Now, as we know, we do need the SKU, of course, that's how we join our things together. We also want that quantity. So back onto our data extension here and QTY. Get QTY, oops, back into our SQL, and get the sum of the QTY as QTY. Bringing all this from that data extension, just like that. And now we're going to have QTY bringing in exactly as we need it to be, which is already pre-aggregated. Of course, if we ask something, we need to group by SQL, of course. So now we should get, based on the invoice detail data extension, one row for every SKU with a sum of the quantity sold, which you can then directly left join into our existing selection here, bringing in our SKU and our quantity. SKU, of course, coming from books, quantity now coming from invoice. We haven't quite got segment just yet. Everything except for segment. Okay, so how can we do segment? Well, again, we can use our case statement. So because we've now pre-calculated our quantity, we can make it a really easy case statement for our segment. So we can write in here, case. Now what's our case going to be? Well, it's going to be when the quantity is, what was our first one? Less than 5. So if a quantity is less than 5, then this is going to be a starter book. It's a brand new book. Else, oops, we're going to say otherwise when, if the quantity is less than 10, then it's going to be, and what was our next level up? I think it was going to be a trending book. When the quantity is greater or equal to 10, let's say greater than or equal to 10, then it's going to be a top selling. Else, if there's no sales and therefore there's no quantity value found, then the value that's default should be a discovery book, something new to find. That's all done. We can say end as, and calling our brand new output field segment. So let's check that again. We're bringing in our SKU, and we're bringing in our pre-calculated quantity based on the sum of quantity in our invoice detail based on SKU. If that quantity is between 0 and 5, then it's starter. If it's between 5 and 10, then it's trending. If it's greater or equal than 10, so if it's 10 or above, then it's top selling. Otherwise, it's discovery. So try it out. Looking good. All right, let's go next and plug this in to our brand new data extension. So let's have a look at our learning data extension, book sale 3, there it is, overwrite, and next. All right, our new book sales query is ready. Let's save our automation and run once. And our SQL is just finished running, we can see here. So jumping back to our data extensions, jumping into our book sales, we had 0 rows. Let's see what we have now. Hopefully we have all 100, we do for all of our books. And let's check it out. So we did have, for anyone who had 0, it was discovery. Good, we can order by quantity here. Discovery, discovery, good, good, good. And between 1 and 5, was starter? So 1 is starter, good, good, good. 3, 4, up to 4, and it's starter. Anything that's 5 or above was trending. Good, so trending, trending, trending. Once we hit 10, we're in the top selling band. We've got 10 all the way through to 17 for that top book. Very cool. So we now have a data extension that we can use to look up on using AMP script in our emails to return back 3 or 4 categories of book sales. We could very easily find the top skewed top sale book here, which is 17 sales for this SKU. We can put that into our AMP script in one of our emails and show our top 3 top selling books by quickly seeing we've got 17, 15, and 15, and then looking up those SKUs in our books data extension. How good's that? So as you can see, the case statement in SQL is an extremely versatile function that you can use to pre-categorize and segment your data to make it easier to work with in your emails and your AMP script functions. It's really versatile when you add it to additional lookups and functions, like those date and numeric checks that we just did, but you can also use it with string checks and otherwise. The best part is, because the case statement is just like an if statement from other programming languages, it does conform to that waterfall logic. So if the first condition is not met, it proceeds to the second condition, then the third, and so on, which makes it really easy to write your own cascading segments, which you can then produce into your data extensions. And that concludes the first season of my introduction to SQL in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. I hope you've enjoyed learning SQL with me, and you'll use these videos, resources, links, and sample files as you continue to learn in Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Until then, if you did enjoy learning, then make sure you leave a big thumbs up on the videos. And don't forget, you can also leave a comment if there's more things you'd like to learn about SQL. In the meantime, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you can be notified when I release more Salesforce Marketing Cloud videos.